You ever wake up, stretch your arms, look around, and think, now what in the world is going on here? Because after 70, it's like someone flipped the script on you and forgot to tell you there was a rewrite. Things you used to take for granted now feel strange, even absurd. And no, it's not just your memory playing tricks. The world changes, your priorities shift, and suddenly, some things just don't make any sense anymore. Take, for example, fashion trends. Let's talk about jeans that cost more the more holes they have. When you were younger, ripped clothes meant you needed a needle and thread. Now they sell torn-up denim for hundreds of dollars and call it style. You try to figure it out, but honestly, what used to be called worn out is now high fashion. And no matter how long you stare at it, it still doesn't make sense. Or let's talk about passwords. You need one to check your bank, another to read the news, another to order groceries. And every site wants a capital letter, a number, a hieroglyph, and a strand of your DNA. And just when you've got it all written down in a little notebook, some app tells you that's not secure. So now, your password to check the weather looks like a math equation, and you still get locked out. It's like the world is trying to test your sanity one login at a time. Then there's small talk. You get older, and your tolerance for chit-chat about the weather or someone's cousin's dog's birthday goes right out the window. When you were younger, you'd nod politely, maybe even throw in a, "How nice." But after 70, your patience thins and your honesty thickens. You start asking the real questions. You cut to the chase. And the funny thing is, people act surprised, like they didn't just waste 15 minutes talking about gluten-free cupcakes, dating apps. Yes, I said it. The idea of finding love, or let's be honest, even a decent lunch companion, through an app makes your head spin. Swipe left, swipe right, emojis, filters, ghosting. What happened to bumping into someone at the supermarket or meeting at church? Now it's like shopping for romance, like you're picking out curtains. And half the time, you're not even sure the person in the photo is still breathing. Speaking of photos, what's the deal with people photographing their lunch? At 70 plus, your priorities shift dramatically. A hot meal is to be eaten, not documented from 5 angles. You don't need proof you had eggs. You just need salt, pepper, and maybe a slice of toast if your doctor still lets you eat bread. You sit there watching people adjust the lighting on a salad, and you can't help but think, is this real life? Then there's noise. Loud restaurants, blaring televisions, screeching car alarms. It all becomes unbearable. When you were younger, you might have enjoyed a loud concert or a party. But now, you crave silence like it's a luxury item. You want a quiet corner, a good book, and maybe the sound of birds. Anything above a whisper feels like an assault on your soul. And don't even get me started on those Bluetooth speaker backpacks young folks wear like musical jetpacks. Customer service menus. Press 1 for English, 2 for billing, 3 to scream into the void. By the time you get to a human being, you've forgotten why you called. Back in the day, you'd call a number and someone would answer. A real person, with a real voice. Now you get a robot asking you to repeat your mother's maiden name while you shout "representative" into your phone like it owes you money. Then there's the obsession with youth. Every commercial, every ad, every headline pushing creams, serums, diets, detoxes, all just trying to sell you the idea that younger is better. But you've lived long enough to know that youth isn't everything. You've earned your wrinkles, your scars, your silver hair. You carry decades of wisdom and laughter on your skin. And it's baffling how the world keeps pretending that aging is a disease instead of the privilege it really is. And perhaps the strangest thing of all? The way people start treating you like you're invisible. You walk into a store, and the cashier talks to the person behind you. You make a suggestion in a conversation, and someone repeats it like it was their idea. After 70, It's like you become a ghost in plain sight. But you're still here, still thinking, still feeling, still dreaming. You just see things differently now, and maybe that's exactly why so many things no longer make sense. You see, getting older isn't just about changing bodies, it's about changing eyes. You start seeing through things, nonsense, pretense, the things people waste their lives worrying about. You've been around long enough to know what matters and what doesn't. And that clarity is a gift, even if the rest of the world hasn't caught up to it yet. There's a strange kind of power in realizing how much noise you can let go of. You stop chasing people who don't appreciate you. You stop explaining yourself to folks who've already made up their mind. You don't waste time pretending to enjoy things you don't. That kind of peace? It's not for sale. You earn it. One strange, confusing, hilarious, and sometimes infuriating moment at a time. And yet, despite how many things no longer make sense, there's beauty in it. Because once you stop trying to keep up, you start noticing the moments that really count. A good laugh with an old friend. A walk where your knees don't complain too much. A song on the radio that takes you back to a time you thought you'd forgotten. These are the things that start making more sense than ever before. Maybe the world spins faster now. Maybe technology runs ahead while you take slower, steadier steps. But don't mistake that for being left behind. You're just walking in a different rhythm. And sometimes, that rhythm lets you see the scenery the younger folks are too busy scrolling to notice. That's the funny thing about being over 70. You might feel like a misfit in a world full of passwords, gadgets, noise, and nonsense, but you're not the one who's confused. You just see the punchline before everyone else. And if you can laugh at it, if you can shake your head and smile and carry on, then maybe, just maybe, you're ahead of the game after all. Let's pick up with number 7. The thing that makes absolutely no sense after 70. Pants without pockets. Who's designing these things? Someone who's never carried tissues, keys, or hard candy in their life, apparently. Back in the day, you didn't leave the house without your essentials. Now you buy a pair of slacks and realize the pockets are fake. Decorative. Like you don't actually need to carry anything except regret. You end up stuffing everything into your coat and waddling around like a squirrel in winter. It's not fashion. It's sabotage. Now, number 8. And it might ruffle some feathers, literally. Because the next thing that makes no sense is technology that's smarter than you but dumber than a duck. Case in point, the GPS on your phone. It's supposed to be your trusty sidekick, but instead, it takes you on joyrides through back alleys and across railroad tracks. You just wanted to get to the pharmacy, and somehow you end up face to face with a goose guarding a bike path like it's Buckingham Palace. You're too old to be chased by angry birds over a miscalculated left turn, and the GPS still insists you have arrived. And number 9. Maybe the most important one. The expectation that older people should always be sweet, quiet, and agreeable. Like aging turns you into a porcelain doll. But here's the truth. After 70, you've earned the right to be bold, to be loud, to speak up when something's wrong. There's a wisdom that comes with years, but the world often confuses it for passivity, as if you should be content sitting quietly while the world rushes by. But your voice still matters. Your stories matter, and your opinions are sharper now than they've ever been. So what happens when all these things start to make less sense? You adapt, of course, but you also start asking different questions. You begin to measure your days not by what you've accomplished, but by how you felt. Not by how many likes or clicks or messages, but by the smile of someone you love, the taste of your morning coffee, or the way your favorite chair creaks just a little when you settle into it. You learn that it's okay to say no. No to drama. No to expectations. No to anything that doesn't bring peace. And once you get the hang of that, a lot of things that once made no sense start becoming clear. You start decluttering, not just your closet, but your life. You let go of friendships that only drain you. You release grudges that have been renting space in your heart for too long. You don't care if your socks match anymore. You care if your grandkids call, or if the roses finally bloomed in the yard. Priorities become real. And in that clarity, you find a kind of joy that younger folks can't quite grasp yet. You also stop apologizing for taking your time. If it takes 10 minutes to get out of a chair, so be it. If you read every label in the grocery store aisle because you're watching your sodium, who's rushing you? You earned that time. It's yours. Take it. The irony is, the older you get, the less you worry about time, even though you're more aware of how precious it is. Because now, every moment feels more golden. Every laugh is richer. Every tear feels truer. And when you say, "I love you," it carries the weight of decades behind it. That's a kind of treasure you don't get from youth. You get it from living. You may look in the mirror and not recognize the face staring back. The lines, the spots, the folds. They weren't there yesterday, were they? But then you remember. Every one of those lines tells a story. Every scar is a survival. Every gray hair is a badge of honor. And suddenly, the reflection feels less foreign. It feels like home. What doesn't make sense to the world often makes perfect sense to someone who's lived long enough to see behind the curtain. You've seen how fast things change. You've watched music shift, wars start and end, presidents come and go. You've been through loss and love and maybe even both in the same week. And still, here you are. You find yourself becoming a walking library. You hold recipes that don't exist on paper. You remember how your mother hummed while folding laundry. You remember gas costing less than a candy bar. And even though the world forgets, you don't. You carry it all, quietly, proudly. So what do you do when the world doesn't make sense anymore? You laugh. You sit down with friends and share a story so outrageous that halfway through, everyone's wiping their eyes and pounding the table. You find the absurdity in it all. You don't take yourself too seriously. And when someone younger rolls their eyes, you just smile. Because you know something they don't yet. That life is short. But it's also wide, and messy, and beautiful. And most of it won't make sense no matter how many birthdays you've had. You lean into the chaos with a sense of humor. When your hearing aid squeals in the middle of church, you make a joke. When your knees crack like bubble wrap, you name each sound and give it a backstory. You treat every small annoyance as a tiny performance. Because if you can't laugh, what's the point? And maybe, just maybe, that's what aging is really about. Not resisting the nonsense, but learning to dance with it, to grin at it, to find rhythm in the randomness and wisdom in the weird. So next time someone asks why you still go on walks, why you insist on writing checks, or why you talk to your plants like they're part of the family, just shrug and say, "It makes sense to me." Because after 70, you've earned the right to do what feels right, even if no one else gets it. Especially if no one else gets it. And if someone tries to hand you jeans with no pockets again, smile politely, then hand them a Werther's Original, shake your head, and walk away with your candy, your clarity, and your sense of humor fully intact. Now, if you've made it this far, maybe you're nodding along. Or maybe you're laughing a little because some of this hits too close to home. Either way, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button and drop your city in the comments. I want to know where the wise folks of the world are watching from. Because while the world may not always make sense, this community we're building together, that makes perfect sense to me.